word.
Sportscast August 19th, 2020. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on all our channels, YouTube, Periscope, and iTunes. And if you're on iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It will help us out tremendously. And, of course, visit us on thesportscast.net, thesportscast.net for the latest and greatest. We got a breaking news story, but we'll talk about that soon. This episode is brought to you by InstaBible app. You can download the InstaBible app on the iOS App Store. Share a verse to the world. Bayern Munich has throttled Lyon 3-0 with another huge performance by the German club, making the final between PSG and Bayern Munich this Sunday. Today we have a first-time guest. He's trying out on the Sportscast, you can say. Nick Rosetti, at the Rosetti, all the way from Austin, an Alabama alum. Yes, we have another Alabama alum. Nick, welcome to the Sportscast.
Santiago, thank you so much. Really excited to be on. Love your guys' podcast. Love the following and everything you guys are working with. So excited to finally chat today about all kinds of different sports topics that we got going on in today's news.
Nick, tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually grew up in the greater DMV area. Grew up as a Baltimore Ravens and Baltimore Orioles fan, and actually Naval Academy fan as well. And then actually attended the University of Alabama for undergrad and my graduate degree. Obviously a huge Bama fan for pretty much all sports, regardless of football and basketball. Actually a big Bama baseball fan as well. And now I'm living in Austin, Texas. So I'm in Longhorn Nation, working full time, and I guess you could say behind enemy lines, although they seem to not enjoy it when everything that I say to them, I just tell them 2009 national championship game, and that seems to trigger a lot of people around here. So
it's funny because we had a guest last night who played in that game, Mike McCoy. So I know all about it. So this is perfect timing, by the way.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And right above I'm looking at it right now in my apartment, I have a Return to Glory mural of the 2009 team with Marcel Darius and Nick Saban holding the national championship trophy. So it's always something that I enjoy to show to people who are UT graduates.
Now, you found the Sportscast through a guest we had a couple weeks ago, Cruz Oxenreiter. So you went to Alabama during the championship dynasty years, even though we're still in it, but you were in like the midst of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like to kind of tell my Bama story as it started off very low, because my freshman year was the kick six, which was very hard to get over. But as things kind of progressed from there, luckily I actually got to see 2 championships, one Heisman Trophy winner, 22 first-round draft picks, and countless other memories. I think one of my favorite stats of my time there is I was, as a student, 51-1 in terms of home. I'd love to see, from any time period had that type of record during their time as an undergrad and graduate student. So pretty awesome stat there.
Yeah, you definitely were not suffering as an Alabama fan. But what got you to Alabama? Was it like your grandpa went there? Like, what got you there?
Yeah, great question. Honestly, as I mentioned, I grew up in the DMV area, so I grew up a football fan, but I wanted to experience something that was going to be completely different. I'd never really traveled to the South before I decided to go to school there. I had only visited Alabama once before I guess you could say committed. And I just wanted an opportunity to meet people from a completely different background and be in a big school environment. Obviously the football was a big driving factor of that, but I also just wanted to, experience the Deep South and something a lot different than what I was used to. And ultimately it was the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I'm from Miami. Miami is not considered like the Deep South or anything. I lived in Birmingham for about a year and a half, so I wanted to experience that part of the world, and I loved it. Football was God, isn't it? I mean, football is God in Alabama.
It's a whole other world to try to explain to someone what it's like unless they've actually been there. So that's awesome that you've lived in Birmingham. You get it. But it's living and breathing every single day. There is no off season. Whether it's recruiting or coaching rumors or any aspect of during the season, it's what everybody talks about all the time. And you better know what you're talking about too, because if you don't, nobody's going to want to have a conversation with you down there. So it's a way of life for sure.
It's funny, when I was there, it kind of felt like, like Auburn is like the real minority there. But even though Auburn has a good football team here and there, but, Auburn, the fans, it's just in that one sector in Alabama. But the whole state is just red Alabama Crimson Tide fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the state splits pretty much 80-20. Montgomery area, I would say, is where most of the Auburn fans are from and live, that eastern side, like southeastern side of the state. But mainly north and west, so the Mobile area, most of Birmingham, and obviously Huntsville. That's all Bama land for sure.
Geographics make a big stride there. Tell us about Austin. How's the sports scene there? Is Austin as cool as everyone says when you live there?
Yeah, it's so I've lived here now for roughly 7 months. It's everything is advertised, or I should say that with an asterisk. It was everything is advertised, obviously before the pandemic and things started to shut down, but it is a great town, so much to do, so much sports, and really sports history with obviously the University of Texas Austin here. And it's also kind of funny that here in Austin, there's so much talk of college football and just sports in general. But if you think about it, they really haven't been good for almost over a decade now.
Correct.
Or you could say even more than that.
Vince Young.
So it's yeah, exactly. So, you hear them talk, and they talk about Ricky Williams and Vince Young and Matt Brown and all of those glory years that they had. But that was so long ago, right? And they've tried to make all these different strides of Texas is back. But in terms of the city and overall sports, obviously, and hopefully we get a chance to talk about Austin FC coming in, which is going to be huge. But overall, in terms of its history and UT as a whole, it really is a great sports town.
Now, do you see a lot of more of like Cowboys fans or Houston Texans fans there?
Yeah, you know what? I would say more Houston fans than Cowboys fans.
Really?
We are slightly closer to Texans, to Houston, obviously, than we are to Dallas. Houston's probably about 2-hour drive, and Dallas is roughly 3.5 or so. But overall, the most that I see is actually San Antonio Spurs fans of any other type of sports league. That's the most that I see.
Only team that's won a championship in the past 10 years there.
Well, you could say the Houston Astros.
True.
Being what that may, I'm sure your listeners aren't going to like to hear that one too much. But the Astros, of course, are really well known here as well and very popular.
Quite interesting. Of course, we'll be talking a little bit more about Texas sports later on throughout the year, and there's a lot of news coming out there. Let's go to the main entree of the night. Bayern Munich defeated Lyon 3-0, Nick. 2 goals by Serge Gnabry, and, of course, Robert Lewandowski squeezed that 3rd goal. What were your thoughts over this match?
Yeah, absolutely. I was surprised that Lyon had some chances early, and if they were going to make this a game, it was going to be maybe they get one in those first couple of minutes. But the Serge Gnabry goal, the first one, was absolute class. The German national, what can you say about him? He's got plays with great pace. Bayern Munich overall, once they scored that first one, I pretty much knew that this one was going to be over, although Lyon did have some light chances towards the end there, but overall, the team with the more class came out on top. Would have been interesting to see an all Ligue 1 final with PSG obviously advancing earlier this week, and then Lyon also playing in Ligue 1 as well. But the German champions, they're going for a treble, and I honestly didn't see anything stopping them here today.
Nick, you're a true soccer fan because how you pronounce Ligue 1, that's the correct terminology when it comes to world football.
Correct.
So
yeah. Correct.
So I believe you. You do watch soccer.
I do. This is my passion. That's actually what I played when I was in high school, and still continue up to it.
Which position were you in high school?
So I was a forward until my senior year, and then I switched actually right back. So actually playing a little bit of what now nowhere near obviously the class level of Alphonso Davies, but kind of that hybrid, back line that still kind of pushes forward. That's kind of what my role was when I was a senior.
Now, your last name, of course, looks Italian. Do you go for Italy or USA, when it comes to, like, international football?
That's where I'm from. That's where I'm born. But my dad's side of the family, especially, we're actually from a small town on the western side of Italy called Bari, I should say.
Right.
So my dad's mom, my grandmother, she's always kind of watching Italy and paying more attention. I obviously watch Italy as well, but yeah, I'm a U.S. fan.
Yeah, me too. My dad is from Colombia, and when I was a kid, I was more towards Colombia. Then when I get into my teens, I got into USA, and I'm a diehard USA fan. Of course, right now, USA is going through their restructuring time. Even though Pulisic is doing great, but we're kind of restructuring from like the old, Landon Donovan, Clem Dempsey days. But hopefully that will be corrected soon. But yeah, you're right about like the whole Italian thing, because I remember back in '94 there was a lot of Italians up in New Jersey, and they would go for Italy a lot. So I was wondering if you were in that pool as well. So
yeah, my dad too. He's like I said, it's more my dad's side of the family.
Right.
And my dad does watch Italy as well. He actually has a Francisco Totti jersey that he still wears around all the time. And I've always been trying to tell him, like, you need to take that thing off. But he does watch the team a lot. And obviously what really, set it off for me was the 2006 World Cup against France. When Italy won in the shootout, obviously, as most people know that for the Zinedine Zidane headbutt game. That's something that really kind of kicked off my interest as well as I started playing sports as a kid.
And there you have it. That's our little bit of international soccer. Anyways, back to Bayern Munich, Lyon. Of course, Bayern Munich was possessing the ball at 66%. Lyon had 34%. Bayern Munich had 8 shots on target. Lyon has 3. Nick, I got to be honest with you. This Bayern Munich looks pretty much unstoppable. They look full press, like their fullbacks are playing wide and high. Can we kind of declare them as champion by now? Because it seems like they could stomp over PSG probably.
Yeah, you know what? I want to go back to the 2013 last time that Bayern Munich won the treble. That team, I thought, after they beat Dortmund in the final in 2013 in London, I believe, I thought that was the best Bayern Munich team I've ever seen, at least since I've been watching them. But now with all this young talent that they have and all of these different, that was the Ribéry, Robin team with Mario Gomez and Mandzukic. Now you still have those kind of core key pieces of David Alaba and Boateng and Thomas Müller. But the perfect combination of the wing backs that they use with Alphonso Davies, you have even Coutinho coming off the bench. There's a lot of just different dynamics that this team has that they can play any style. They can come at you in full attack. They completely possess the team or possess the ball as much as they possibly can. And that's something that I think tailored over from when Pep Guardiola was there during that like little window that he was there in 3 seasons or so. But I also think from PSG's perspective, they were a team that could never get over the hump, right? They'd get bounced in the quarterfinals or the semifinals of the Champions League. They go out, they spend the money on Neymar, they get Mbappe, they get all these different guys, and sure enough, they finally have gotten over the hump, and they're actually going for a treble as well, which is obviously they win their League Cup, they win their league, and they win the Champions League. So it's going to be interesting. I think that right now my gut says Bayern 3-2. But I think that PSG is going to keep it close, and it's really going to come down to maybe a couple of key saves from Neuer or one of the PSG goalies for sure.
As we were talking about, PSG also made it to the final. They beat RB Leipzig 3-0, a goal by Marquinhos, Di Maria, and Velasco. everyone thought this lipstick team might do something, but PSG came all out. This is the PSG, Nick, that everyone's been talking about for years. They got all the talent, the money, and they never made it till right now. What are your thoughts over this team going into the final?
Yeah, and I think it all came when Thomas Tuchel came over from Dortmund and was appointed the manager of this team. I love his style. I love that they're more sound defensively than they've ever been, at least from when I've been kind of watching them through the Champions League. That was something that always kind of hindered them, and that goes back to the embarrassment game when they lost on aggregate leading 5-1 against Barcelona and blew it. And they've had so many different downfalls throughout the years of failing to get to a final. And they could really never get over the hump. And finally, they figured out, a way to play sound defensively and also be more structured in their attack. Obviously, with players like world-class players, Mbappe, Neymar, you still have Di Maria there, and a couple of other key pieces that have really got them, like I said, over that hump. And obviously, I think that all the credit goes to the manager, right? Thomas Tuchel, I loved him when he was at Dortmund. Love what he's brought with PSG as well. I was excited to see Leipzig because of Tyler Adams, the U.S. international.
Who had an amazing goal last game.
Exactly. I wanted to see a U.S. international in Champions League final if it wasn't going to be Pulisic, which not a lot of people knew that Tyler Adams is a U.S. international. Well,
there's debate that he might be better than Pulisic, but that's another podcast to talk about.
That's a conversation for another day. But I would say overall, this PSG team, they're sound defensively, great goalkeeping. So I'm excited for Sunday.
Do you think it'd be? I mean, obviously, you said it was 3-2. Looks pretty close. This final won't have fans. It's pretty much neutral ground. Do you think the momentum is with Bayern? Do you think PSG might need Verratti if he's healthy by then? Like, how do you see it, like, detail-wise?
I really think there's going to be early stage of feeling each other out, mainly with the sound defensiveness of PSG and then Bayern, testing out their weaknesses. I think that whoever scores first in this game is key. It's very key to score first in this game, to get ahead, to get some momentum, perhaps in the first half, because, and especially with PSG, I don't see them possessing that much. I see Bayern, playing it back and forth as they typically do, going between the midfield and the attack with Lewandowski and Muller and all of those wing backs. So I think who scores first is key, and who scores first in the first half is key as well to gain that momentum and going into the second half. But I do see kind of a high-scoring game because I think both teams can play pretty fluid. As we've seen, even from the return, as things kind of got back to normal, specifically with the Champions League, but also all leagues across Europe, I felt like things were a little bit more free-flowing, less structure. Guys were just kind of going out there to have fun and try things that they wouldn't typically try. So I'm excited to see what that looks like on a final stage like the Champions League.
If it goes to penalties, who has the advantage?
That's a great question. I'm going with Bayern because of Manuel Neuer.
Correct. Yeah.
He, in my opinion, is the best goalie in the world. That's my opinion. But that's who I'm going to go with, mainly because of the goalkeeping, not so much just looking purely at the top 5 scorers or who would be lined up, 1 through 5. I would say it's a pretty much wash. So I'm going to go with the stronger goalkeeper.
I do agree. I think the goalkeeper does have the advantage. Of course, there will be no laser shining towards goalkeepers, so that's a good thing. Everything's safe on their end. But, yeah. I mean, I can't say anyone can score a penalty. I think like the percentage is over 90%, but it comes down to goalkeeping, and I think Manuel Neuer does have a better shot. Who was your team in the Champions League that you wanted to go deep?
So my team was Bayern. I've actually been a Bayern fan since I started watching Bastian Schweinsteiger back like in the early 2000s.
Oh, perfect.
He was my favorite player growing up. And I've always kind of, when I was playing, I tried to mirror my game a little bit off of what he was doing, jack of all trades. But I was watching when Landon Donovan had his small stint with Bayern. Actually going back to when Klinsmann was the coach as well. So I've always kind of been a Bayern fan through and through.
But was Donovan like not that? I mean, was he kind of like not much exposed in that team? Like, was he like always on the bench?
Yes, exactly. He very minimal playing time. Kind of similar to what Josie Altidore was when he was playing for Sunderland, and a couple of other small stints that he had in the Premier League. And same thing too with Michael Bradley when he was playing for Roma. Like maybe one or two, a couple of appearances per year, but not a lot. Not a lot of playing time.
Yeah, that's something that I see that I wish Landon went to the Premier League than like the Bundesliga back then. I think he might have had a better shot in playing time.
Yeah, and even when he had that stint with Everton, right? Like that was amazing. Some of the most fun Landon Donovan times that I've ever seen. Like that was great to watch. I to that point, it was something that really kind of bothered me that I wish he had stayed longer overseas. Same with Michael Bradley. Yeah, he could have. And Michael Bradley could have too. No, I get it. The MLS was the payday, right? And obviously going back home and being with your family and things like that. But I even think, and this has always been my opinion, in that the training regimen overseas, even if you're not playing, is better for your development than playing, full-time in the MLS. Now, obviously, things have changed in the MLS. It's gotten way more competitive, I think. And I think it's only a matter of time until one of these European superstars decides to give the MLS a chance during their prime. But overall, I would say just back in those days, I would have preferred my U.S. men's national team players to be overseas rather than playing in the MLS.
I am on that same page, man, that same boat. I really do think Europe still has the highest playing level when it comes to soccer. I do think Bradley went way too early when he went back to the MLS. Back to the MLS because he played there before he went to Europe. Landon Donovan should have stayed more in Europe. I know they wanted to grow the game, but if you want to play at the highest level, it's Europe. That's just how it is today. MLS could be at the highest level maybe in 20 years. I mean, who knows? But I think at the time, a lot of players were moving back. And also, I even thought Clint Dempsey kind of moved back too early.
Yeah. So Dempsey had a couple of injuries, I think, when he finished up with Tottenham. But obviously the payday, right? That was big on him. And I think once he moved back, he only was around for a couple of more seasons until he retired full on. So I think injuries and just age was his thing, or else he would have stayed. Because even when he was playing for Fulham, I mean, he was so, and that was when Fulham was in the Premier League. They've since bounced out, but and now they're back in actually for this upcoming year. But man, it was so fun to watch him because it was so fun to connect with and that was really when the Premier League started to get with NBC, and there was a lot of TV time, right, for watching the Premier League, which there wasn't really for me when I was first growing up. And watching, the U.S. stars that you watched on wearing the Stars and Stripes for the international game was awesome to see them being successful for their club, especially in the Premier League.
Yeah, a whole different dynamic back in the day, and I remember that I had to go watch Fox Sports or Fox Sports World to watch these matches.
Oh yeah,
and of course NBC is a little bit more visible, and soccer's become way more visible now in like the U.S. except until CBS got the Champions League.
I mean, the TV contract with NBC, I think that opened the market up to particularly with the Premier League. I've had more friends ask me about what teams they should get into and who they should be watching and paying attention to. Obviously, with a star like Pulisic, he's moving to the Premier League. That was huge, and just more and more Americans, I think, paying attention to a sport that deserves a lot more credit than I think it gets because. The MLS has always been kind of the punchline for a bad joke here in the States. Now it's growing, obviously, but still nowhere near, the top, you could say, 3 or 4 leagues here in the U.S. Although I would say if I were to put stock in any league in the United States that is a professional sports league in terms of growth between now and the next 10 years, I would put as much money as I possibly could in the MLS.
I totally
but that's
agree.
neither here nor there. So I would say, just the exposure and the TV contract with NBC has been huge, but I agree with you. Something needs to be done about the Champions League. We got to get that figured out. So,
but what I do
year,
is I'm cheap and I go on to like the Spanish channels to watch it.
Yeah.
Univision and
Reddit.
TDDUN to watch it because it's free and
Reddit
I have
is not
Fubo
bad
TV.
either.
So I mean, I'm
Fubo,
already
okay.
paying $45 a month. Like, why would I pay another $5 for CBS?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. And you get Liga Mexica too, don't you? With Fubo, or am I wrong?
Yes. Because I have like all the Spanish channels like Galavision, Univision, and TDUN, which Liga MX is the highest watched league in the U.S. Can you believe that?
I actually, that to me that actually makes sense. I'm not surprised at that at all in terms of just the culture that we have here in the U.S., particularly like in Texas here, Arizona.
You see it all over, yeah.
With the Latino community,
yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. I see all kinds of jerseys, Tijuana, and I'm looking up the because Maradona was just coaching a team in Liga MX, wasn't he?
I did not know that. He coaches everywhere, to be honest. I think anyone that has a paycheck for him.
Yeah, exactly.
But
he's great TV as well. So,
which is interesting because Liga MX had promotion, relegation as well. Very similar to what they do in Europe, but like they took it away. So it'll be interesting if the MLS brings promotion relegation. But anyways, we gotta move on with the show. Let me know if Maradona got that team in Mexico. If you can pull that up.
Yeah, I was mistaken. He's coaching a team in Argentina right now, and the reason why I even brought it up is because there's a docuseries on Netflix about him coaching this new team.
Oh, really?
So if anybody hasn't had a chance to take a look at that yet, definitely go.
I have to go subscribe to it on Netflix. I haven't had Netflix in a bit. Anyways, U.S. soccer schedule has been released for the 2022 World Cup qualifying. The final round will now feature 8 teams playing a 14-game home and away round-robin format. It is based on the top 5 CONCACAF teams in July's FIFA's World Cup ranking. The U.S., Costa Rica, Honduras, Jamaica, and Mexico automatically qualified for the final round, while the 3 remaining participants will be determined through 2 preliminary rounds of qualifying, which will run from October 2020 to March 2021. The U.S. could potentially play Trinidad and Tobago in their opening match of the final round of the 22. That
sends chills down my spine.
Yeah, I know. Let me give you guys like the background. Trinidad and Tobago eliminated us from the World Cup for 2018. It was a 2-1 game. So that they pretty much have become our rivals pretty much lately. Depending on the results in the earlier rounds, Trinidad and Tobago defeated the U.S., as we were saying. So what I was gathering, and my friend on WhatsApp was telling me that with this type of format, you could win 6 wins, have a couple draws, and 3 losses, and you're into the World Cup.
Yeah, so I don't want to say it's impossible because of what happened in 2018, but it is a very minute chance that missing the World Cup will ever be in the realm of possibilities for the U.S. men's national team. They've switched the World Cup from 32 teams to 48 qualifying teams that come into the round-robin tournament. So that's gone and adjusted all the different CONCACAF and all the different qualifiers across the world. So they did that on purpose because they want more nations involved. More nations involved means more money because you're going to have more people watching. But overall, in terms of just the CONCACAF qualifying and in terms of what lays ahead for the men's national team, I wouldn't say that. I don't want to say there's a guaranteed qualification for 2022, but I would say that they have a very, very favorable schedule to be there and representing the U.S. At that tournament. They
want the U.S. because they probably realized that they lost a lot of money without the U.S. Yeah. And trust me, like the TV ratings were down at 2018 World Cup. Now thinking about it, and hopefully, hey, it's become a little bit political soccer, but that's another conversation we can have.
Yeah.
A little bit, but with this U.S. team, Nick, obviously I know it's a little bit easy. Do you think this U.S. team has a lot of promise? Obviously, with Christian Pulisic and obviously Adams. I know the coach is question mark, but what do you see this team right now?
Yeah, say that they're in a trial and error stage of the team itself. Not necessarily a rebuild, because foundations of the men's national teams change constantly. There's the changing of the guard, and that pretty much came with the departure of Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan and Bocanegra and all of these different guys that have represented the team for a really long time. In terms of the young talent, some of these guys I'm thinking of, Weston McKennie, Jordan Morris, Josh Sargent, some of those guys that are going to be the key pieces moving forward are there. They're not tested yet. And the reason why we haven't seen much of them is, one, we haven't had a lot of international stage soccer here in the last couple of months, obviously. And right about now is when we've been getting into qualifying before the pandemic and everything like that. But some of these other guys that kind of fill in the rest of the 11 starters, Tim Reed, we still have Joshy Zardes available. Really, goalkeeper, I would say, is still a question mark. Who knows if Brad Guzan's still going to be playing. So there's a lot of key positions that still need to be figured out. With that being said, if we can use this time wisely and fill in the spots that we need to with this core group of guys, core group of young talent with Adams and McKinney and Yedlin and Morris and Josh Sargent and Will Trapp and Pulisic, obviously, then I think we can, really put together a formidable team for 2022. It's all going to come down to Berhalter and how he structures this team. What identity do they want to have? Because if you think about U.S. men's national team in the past, it's always been this scrappy counterattack team, not very stylistic, messy in play, and
4-4-2,
really just kind of the
4-4-2,
like the basics. And just, sit back and hope somebody makes a mistake, and then use the speed that we have and the level of fitness that we have as athletes to counterattack and hopefully score.
What
I'm hoping that so go ahead.
Which Jurgen Klinsmann was trying to change that, but I guess he really couldn't. But anyways, go on.
No, what I was, and that's a story for a whole different day. On
exactly.
What his idea.
I could talk to you forever. By the way, it's our first time, guys. Anyways, keep going.
No, I was going to, and that goes back to the whole, U.S. men's national team president and what they wanted out of the team. And that goes back to who I wanted to be president that was chosen not to be. But anyway, so they hired Greg Berhalter, the MLS guy. I didn't love it. I still don't. I thought that in order to match the level of play abroad, we need to get a perspective from a coach that is abroad. That's why I actually didn't mind Jurgen as a coach at all. And I really thought that he just needed more time to build out his ideas of what he wanted this team to look like. Obviously, that didn't happen. But it's all going to come down to the coach, right? It's going to come down to who he plugs in where, how that back four line plays, and who the goalkeeper is. Because what we have as an opportunity is to grow this sport even further because we have a star, right? We have a star that on a world stage like the World Cup gives us an opportunity that people who are casual soccer fans can really get into. You all know who I'm talking about, Christian Pulisic. That's why I was so bummed out when we didn't make the World Cup in 2018 because, again, that was an opportunity to not only introduce Christian Pulisic to the world, but create a casual fan base that can come together and want to watch soccer in the U.S. 2022 is our opportunity 2.0. So I really hope that we get the rest of the team figured out so that we can shine. Yeah,
and what Nick was bringing up was Greg Berhalter. Is he the man? Is he not the man? And I agree, he wasn't a sexy pick. I think at the time, Marco Bielsa was an option, and the guy that went to Mexico was an option. I forgot his name. Anyways, we'll definitely which he coached for like Atlanta FC. I think he was an option as well. But of course, things happen, and Greg Berhalter has plenty of time to get things organized. And of course, Pulisic had an amazing couple of months with Chelsea. Probably one of the. I don't know about you, Nick, but this guy has potentially be the greatest soccer player I mean, of all time, when it comes to like, U.S. soccer. Do you think that will happen or?
Yeah, just to go back to your point, wasn't it Tata Martino?
Yes. I think he was an
running?
option at the time. I think.
Yeah, he was. I think he was, and then he took the he took
Mexico
the team
job,
for
a rival,
Mexico.
but
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so in terms of Christian, he actually grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is not too far where I grew up, and I think he moved to Dortmund into their academy when he was 12, 13, something like that. So, I mean, this kid is what you would call is the prodigy, right? He's the future, but I think in terms of labeling him as the future, just especially how he showed out for Chelsea in these last couple of months, is really astonishing. And moving to a big club like Chelsea is obviously an opportunity for more and more people to appreciate his talent. I'm not there yet to call him the greatest. I think he has all the potential to do it. In my opinion, Landon Donovan is still the greatest U.S. men's national team player to ever put on the jersey. But mainly that comes from his moments, right? His moments on the world stage. You don't have to go too far back to remember the Algeria game and how big of a goal that was. Even random days, I'll find myself going back and watching that reaction video from the game in the 2010 World Cup. But I think that once you give Pulisic the opportunity to shine in a World Cup and do what he does best, then I think we can talk about it. But what Donovan had that Pulisic hasn't had is team success. Donovan made it past the group stage a couple of times in the World Cup. They made it to the quarterfinals, I believe, in 2002. I believe he was on that team. So he has some world stage success, and in my opinion, that's really important in terms of your overall career. So I think that Pulisic has the opportunity to become that, but we're just going to have to see how he does in 2022 and beyond.
He's only in his early 20s, 21-year-old, so definitely Pulisic has a whole lot of mileage ahead of him, so we'll see what happens, especially with Chelsea. Chelsea likes him so far, scored a couple of goals, so we'll definitely see what's going to come because the Premier League is going to start in less than a month, so we'll definitely see more soccer unstopped.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, but yeah, the Sportscast. Yeah, I know. It's going to be an incredible year so far. So, of course, soccer is a big thing in Sportscast, but also another big thing is college football. Breaking news, UNC and Notre Dame have put a halt to practices this week. They paused it. Nick, obviously, some people are calling like the ACC like the linchpin. If ACC goes, so could SEC and the Big 12. Do you think what UNC did and like also Notre Dame did, do you think it's a red flag or do you think it's just this week?
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of answer your question with a question. What I don't understand is why people think that going to online classes, going fully remote for students is a bad thing. Is somehow going to affect the football programs of Notre Dame or UNC or Alabama for that reason if they go to all online classes. The whole premise of this argument, right, is to keep the players safe. Well, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I would say that the players of these football programs are more safe. That's probably the wrong grammar there, but they're more inclined to be at risk if the student body is going to regular classes and walking around campus. Because the threshold of what they're doing when they're involved in football activities, the amount of testing, who they're around, the amount of social distancing that's being practiced, all of that stuff is very regimented within the football facility and within these programs. Once you get on campus and you're walking around with all these students, that's the risk, right? That's what's driving the level of risk. So in my opinion, going to fully remote online classes and not going to where you're interacting with the rest of the student body, because let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. Student athletes, particularly football players, they're not typical students, right? They're different in the sense of how they're treated and also how they're viewed from the outside public. And And their safety is obviously the utmost concern. But in my opinion, the safety of those players is only going to be enhanced if the rest of the student body isn't participating in fully non-remote classes where they're actually, attending and things like that.
I totally agree with you on that, Nick. I think what I was talking about for a few days, especially with Tyler, that I think the players or the team should be kind of like secluded from the campus a little bit and work in like pods and don't mix with like the student body. Of course, get tested ever so often, but they should be quarantine or like or have them like in a little bubble. I mean, that's what I think in order for college sports to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was at the University of Alabama, I was in a fraternity, and my fraternity was right across the street from Bryant Hall. And Bryant Hall is the athlete's dorm.
I've heard of them.
If you're an athlete at the University of Alabama, you stay at Bryant Hall. I actually saw Tua Tagovailoa a couple of times out there. I met Derrick Henry for the first time outside of there. But anyway, my point is that the athletes, they have their own dorms. They have their whole day-to-day is so structured in terms of being in this, quote-unquote bubble already that, again, the only risk that they ever have of breaking that bubble is going to class in person, right? Walking to class, being in class with the rest of the student body. Obviously, the rest of the student body is not going to take these, the social distancing measures and the health precautions as seriously as somebody that is a D1 athlete. So again, the whole premise of that, we're switching to online classes, that means we can't have football this year, just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Because if anything, it makes it more likely because these student athletes are now going to be in, quote unquote, in their own bubble.
I agree. We'll see what happens. Nick, can you picture just the SEC going alone? Just maybe like the only conference playing this fall, real quick.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit there. Could you repeat the question?
Can you see like the SEC going like all by themselves this fall alone? Like the Big 12, postpones their season until next season. ACC does as well. Can you see the SEC going all alone this fall?
In one word, yes. I could see them going at it all alone. And this is why I think that. And it's kind of important.
Go ahead.
The governors of the states. That's my biggest thing. If you look at all the governors that have schools within the SEC, I'll use Greg Abbott as an example, the governor of Texas. Key Ivey in Alabama. Tennessee. They're all of the governments, the state governments are supporting these programs having football. And not just supporting these programs having football, but I don't know if you've seen these last couple of days, it's trickled out. We're going to have fans in the stands at SEC games this year. It may not be much. 20-25% is usually the range that we're seeing so far. But, we're going to have fans as well.
Which Alabama announced yesterday they will have at 25% capacity. So.
Right, and they're doing a pretty interesting way of how they're going to use the ticket packages, and particularly with what they're providing with the students. But, again, that's a conversation for another day. But to answer your question, I think that the SEC network would play all the games. CBS would play the games in terms of TV rights. The SEC understands the amount of revenue that's at stake, and especially the amount of revenue that they could make with other leagues dropping out. So in my opinion, I believe in Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, and I think that if it all came down to it and it was just the SEC standing alone, that they would still attempt to try to do this.
I do like the spirit of the SEC. The president says he's not worried about it. He's going to move forward. And, of course, they announced the week 1 games recently. So definitely things are definitely moving on. And, yes, I do agree with Nick. I think SEC will go at it alone. They're not afraid. I think and not just alone. I think Big 12 will probably go eventually as well, which Oklahoma, their squad has been kind of dwindling a little bit. So that gives a good chance for Texas to take the Big 12.
Yeah, don't say that too loud here in Austin. You'll really get people fired up for that. In the Big 12, I still think it's Oklahoma's to lose. I love Lincoln Riley. I mean, the offensive guru. I actually was surprised that he didn't take the Cowboys job, even if that was ever offered to him. But that's neither here nor there. And this kid Spencer Rattler, he's the real deal. I know he hasn't stepped one. I think he's had a couple of snaps actually, but nobody's really seen him on a primetime game before. But all it took me was to watch a little bit of his film from when he was in high school in Arizona, and also watch the Netflix series QB1 if you haven't had a chance to check that out.
I've heard about
it. He's the real deal. He's the real deal, and they got a slew of receivers there, so they're going to put up points, and it's all going to come down to, as always, OU's defense, right? That's always been their Achilles heel. So we'll see. They got a new defensive coordinator coming in. They did lose a couple of key pieces in the NFL draft. I know his last name's Murray, a linebacker. He went to the Chargers actually with their second pick in the first round. But anyway, Texas. Tom Herman fires both coordinators. This is really a make it or break deal for Texas this year. I really do, particularly for Tom Herman. This is year 4, I believe. They make it to the Sugar Bowl a couple years ago. They beat Georgia. Then they kind of take a drop off and they go 8-5 last year. So we got Sam Ellinger there, still there. A local kid, went to Westlake High School. Not sure if you saw this, but Texas actually just got the number 1 overall quarterback in the 2022 recruiting class.
I heard about that. I heard that on 247 Sports, yeah.
So, yeah. So that was a big pickup for them. But, in terms of results on the field, we got to get up to a breaking point here. So in my opinion, if they don't win the Big 12 this year, I think Tom Herman's already on the hot seat. I also think that plays into, and this is a whole different topic, but I don't think you're going to see nearly as many coaches bought out as frequently as we've seen in the past because of this revenue shortage that we're going to have with the, limited amount of fans and everything. But, Texas donors have big pockets. I think I know UT is valued higher as a program than Alabama is, and is one of the most highest valued programs in the country. So, we're going to have to see, but if I had to put money on it right now, I would still say OU is going to be the champion this year in the Big 12.
And there you have it. We cover the 3 cores of the sportscast: soccer, college football, and recruiting, which is towards college football. So Nick is definitely on the game when it comes to the sportscast. I might have to give you an A at the end of the show, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, sounds good.
Let's go into predictions and poll question of the day. Predictions. I know you said a score earlier, but give us your final score between PSG and Bayern Munich.
Yep. So my final score is going to be 3-2 Bayern. I think they complete the treble. I think that in the end, too much wing-back attack from the forwards. Robert Lewandowski, I think, is the best player on the field, including, and you heard me right, with Neymar. I still think Robert Lewandowski is the best number 9 in the world. So I'm going to go with Bayern 3, PSG 2 on Sunday.
And probably, yeah. I think Bayern Munich definitely has a good shot. I'm going to say I'm going to hold off because tomorrow I actually have another show predicting this, so I'll give myself another 24 hours. Anyways, poll question of the day: who makes the best ice cream? Dairy Queen, McDonald's, Wendy's, or Burger King?
That's a good one. I'm going to go with McDonald's when the machine isn't broken, which 90% of the time it is.
I agree. It happens here in Florida. It's like something's wrong with it. Oh, yeah, there's no ice cream today. And anyways.
Right.
Dairy Queen
it's like gold.
Yeah, exactly. Dairy Queen is winning 57%. McDonald's is tied with Wendy's, Nick, 21%, and Burger King at 0%.
I get it. The Frosties, again, we're shifting gears here, but the Nashville Predators, they've always had this thing where you get a free Frosty if they score 3 goals, and I had a lot of friends that were Nashville Predators fans. So I've had my fair share of Frosties, but let me tell you, a vanilla ice cream cone from McDonald's, when it's actually working, that's tough to beat, especially in August in Texas. Let me tell you.
And on a Sunday.
It definitely can cool you off a little bit. On a Sunday, exactly.
You know who I did not include, which I just think about it right now, is Chick-fil-A. They had pretty good ice cream.
Yeah, you know who else I would include as well, underrated, is Sonic.
Sonic 2? Oh, my gosh. There could have been 2 more. But in Twitter, they only give us 4 options. So I did it too fast this morning. And Burger King has good ice cream. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I know it's 0. It should be 1% at least. But Anyways, Nick, what is the best way to reach you to talk to about UT football?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Twitter at _Rosetti. That's spelled ROSSETTI, 2 S's, 2 T's. Don't forget it. You can find me on Instagram, same handle, the Rosetti, and then 77 at the end. I'm always down to talk Bama recruiting or just recruiting overall. Again, another cool story that came out today is, I don't know if that you saw, Santiago, but Arch Manning, another Manning, is the #1 quarterback listed for the 2023 recruiting class. That just came out today. So that's going to be a very,
I heard about
very
that
heated,
a couple hours ago.
It's going to be a very, very heated recruiting battle here coming up in a couple of years. So excited to see that. But yeah, those are the two kind of ways that you can find me, and would love to talk college sports and pretty much anything.
Wow, Nick, you definitely hit the 3 chords of this sportscast. We're definitely going to have you on in the future. And we're planning to have a college football preview sometime in September if at least one conference plays this fall. So you're definitely going to come on for that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to.
Yeah, so hopefully just SEC, which is fine. I think SEC is the greatest conference in the world when it comes to college football. I call them the group of death, which is related to soccer.
Yeah. That's a very good point. In particular, I would say the SEC West is the hardest division in college football. Now, not every conference has divisions, and would love to chat with you about why I think divisions don't make sense.
That'd be a good debate.
But yeah, I would love to chat, but that's obviously a conversation that we could have.
We could talk a lot about stuff, guys. Landon Donovan, Pulisic. Just as a sportscast, we keep things raw and interesting, make it a little bit more interesting than the other main sports channels. And of course, you can reach us at the Sportscast1 on Twitter or at thesportscast.net. Check out the latest and greatest news. We got we're for sure following the ACC, because if the ACC had to make an announcement of canceling their season, it would have to happen in the next week or two. So definitely keep us eye on that. Of course, we're checking on recruiting. Some other the recruiting game is still going on. So, and then tomorrow we got we're going to preview more soccer tomorrow with Fernando Lau and Jaime Fernandez. Those are the European correspondents. So we'll get that going. But we'll have Nick back hopefully soon. And we're always scheduling these things week by week. And we'll like to have you and Tyler get together, because he's also big into recruiting. So
yeah, that would be great. Yeah, recruiting is, I would say, right below just Bama overall is kind of my forte. So I'm glad we got to kind of touch on all of those kind of key pieces here today, and excited to jump back on here and talk to somebody else that really is into recruiting as well.
Now, can you do a top 10 recruiting class?
Yeah, in terms of
ranking, Alabama. Well, actually, Alabama's team talent, I guess, type of thing. Would that be something that you're interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And particularly, I would love to talk about the 2021 class, because the talent, especially with Alabama this year, I guess this upcoming recruiting class year, is obviously, until everybody signs on the dotted line, it's not official, but at least who we have verbally committed at the moment, I am beyond excited for.
Yeah, dude.
And this is one of my favorite parts about this class, is how many players we got from the state of Texas. In particular. So I would love to talk to somebody about that. Texas
and Florida, 2 big states when it comes to recruiting. Anyways, guys, of course, tomorrow we'll be back tomorrow night, and then Friday we have Jeff Favre talking a little bit about NFL, and they're not planning to cancel anytime soon. Anyways, Nick, what a great first night for you. What a great first day of you. Great show.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you again, like I said, having me on, and excited to be back on again in the future.
Have a good night.
Yeah.